Let's go.
Yes, lovely listeners, welcome back to the Cat Window podcast. We've got episode 79 for you this week. We've been going a long time, long running relationship between me and Jack, and this week we have a third. We've got one of James's clients, one of Jack's clients, James, on the podcast. There we go. That was a smooth intro.
Cool.
Hello.
So, bro, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you guys?
We're good. Apparently, we're still waking up. Holy shit! This is a stilted start to the podcast.
I was about to say I've been on 0 podcasts, and this has got to be my top 3 most awkward starts to a podcast.
Yeah, this isn't a great start. So far, though, what you guys have missed, you listeners, is James spilt coffee on his keyboard, so we started 2 minutes late. And rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up because you're fucking covered in coffee.
That's what we call working under pressure.
Yeah, mate. To be fair. Has everyone done their morning check-ins so far? Because I actually haven't, as James knows, because he's getting his check-in after this pod.
I've done the majority. However, someone just told me that I sent over a check-in from 4 weeks ago. So now I'm going to go back and redo that one as soon as we're done here.
Oh, mate, that's the worst thing. You ever done it? Did you record the wrong week on their Loom?
Yeah,
Was it?
It was July because they asked for like a reset on their sheets, and I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I gave him a little like reset back a few weeks ago, and then he just messaged me there saying like, so yeah, my hamstring injury's there and done. I was like, fuck. Oh. So change it around.
It's that.
It happens to all of us. You just got to laugh about it.
Yeah, man. It's that, and then there was an audio issue or something where the whole check-in is gone, and particularly if it's a long one, and you're like, oh my days.
Yeah, messed up check-ins have got to be like the one thing that doesn't get talked about enough. Is like when you do like a bunch, like you do like a handful, like you know, like because I like to do it where it's like you do 3 or like 4 back to back, have a little mental reset, take a walk around, then come back.
Yeah.
And then if you've done like a whole block, and then you're like, oh god, that was really good start to the day, and you get a message from someone saying like, well, I can't hear any of what you just said, by the way, and I'm like, right.
Oh mate, yeah, that is the worst feeling. I'm trying to think about the check-in that I've fucked up. Oh no, to be fair, I had my client Dan was doing a photo shoot. Checked in 1 week, bit of an iffy week, whatever. Next week he checks in, also an iffy week. And so I was like, I gave this whole like, mate, we need to, if you want to get serious about this, pushing him kind of thing, like a 20-minute pep talk from me basically. And he goes, mate, you looked at last week again, this week was fine, I fixed it. And I was like, oh shit. So I just went back and was like, yeah, sorry, bro. Yeah, all good. You did actually do it this week. I was like, oh, mate. Painful. Really painful.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than giving a big old pep talk to someone and you use all your energy on it, and then Lexing just got to go back and go like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you did fine. Just fucking give me my money and move on. We'll go next week.
I've had it so many times where, because I get my clients to send me over just like a Loom video, just talking through like off their face how the week's gone type of thing, where I've copied the Loom video into my browser to watch it, and then I haven't copied their Loom video, so I've just sent their video back to them. I'm like, oh mate,
listen to your own feedback, see how you feel.
Yeah.
Mate, if you get any coaches, just be like, take your own advice, send them back to their own Loom.
Yeah.
It's actually yeah.
James is you're very unique as a coach, and you've got a very interesting niche, don't you, young bees? In that, what is your background? What did you go to uni for? Give us a little bit of a rundown, because I'm sure there are going to be people who, haven't heard of you, unfortunately, and they should have.
Yeah, I'm an absolute nobody. So I am a first class, I have to add in, I have a first class honours in a bachelor's degree, sports and exercise therapy. So my main role is a sports and exercise therapist. I work in a small private clinic with one other guy. And we see patients throughout the week. So I spend 50% of my time in there. I spend about 40% of my time actually probably on the gym floor. I'm a PT as well. And then I have a small percentage, which is my Monday mornings, normally around this time, is when I do like online check-ins. So I don't have a big online base, but I'm okay with that because I actually prefer the one-to-one social contact of things. And that's just not for some people. It is for some. Like for me, I enjoy that social aspect of things. I used to think that, online coaching was the way I wanted to go. And then I really tried to push for it. And I found it quite stressful, quite pressurizing. And as much as it is, both of you, it works out really well for you guys. I like being out there. I like going places. I like meeting new people. So the idea of being able to do more face-to-face is like better for me. And that's basically everything I do is face-to-face, sports therapy and personal training.
Nice, mate. Well, Luke, you've obviously been getting into some PT yourself recently, and kind of branching off a little bit. So I think, well, for you, James, what was that point where you realised that was something you wanted to go into, and then we can kind of almost spin off and compare that with Luke, because I'm not doing anything in person. I'm purely online, whereas you two have that kind of in-person stuff alongside.
I think when I first came out of university, they always tell you to come out of university, it's like you want to go into like your lectures, like to travel, enjoy yourself. You've done the hard bit now, go enjoy yourself for a little bit and get straight back into it. But I almost just wanted to like dive straight into work. I wanted to get out into the workplace, make a name for myself, and then try and just get money. Basically, that was what I said, because it's actually a really funny, or like a funny way of saying it. But in second year of university, I made a promise to myself and to my mum. I was like, I'm going to buy a Mercedes by the age of 24. And I was like, well, if I realistically take a year off coming out of university, I'm really going to be delaying it. So I'm quite, what's that motivation? Extrinsically motivated, I guess. Like something that's tangible. You need like a tangible motivation thing.
Yeah.
So I need something tangible to like go after. And some people don't. Some people are like, I just want to feel better. I'm like, no, I want a German. I want a German whip. So I came straight out of university, straight into work, and I did, because obviously that was around the same time as I joined up with Jack. And then I did want to kind of go down the online coaching route. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Yada yada yada. At the time, I had no inkling or no idea that I was going to go into sports therapy, even use my degree. I was like, just got a piece of paper. It can get me into any like sports job I want because of the grade I got. So I just kind of went into personal training because I had a phone call with the gym owners while I was in my third year of uni, and they were like, we'd love to take you on as soon as you get out. I was like, cool, I'll do that. So I went into personal training, and it was a gym I'd been at over the years anyway, so I was familiar with it, so it was nice. And I had absolutely no idea how it was going to go. I had no idea if I was going to get anybody at all. I had no idea. I thought if I get like 50 people all at once, I was that guy who searched up on YouTube how to grow a PT business in 3 days, and then being told if you don't make 3K,
that is how long it takes, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I was like, I had no idea about self-employed life. I had no idea what was going to happen. I genuinely thought I was just going to rock up and people were just going to flood towards me. And oh my God, did I get the biggest shock of my life when absolutely nobody came to me for about 4 months. And I was like, wow, this is awful. Countless like DMs of like, hey, how's your training going? Hey, this and that. And they're like, what am I doing in my life? So then I was like, right, one-to-one's not working. Let's try online coaching. And then that was probably my biggest mistake, was trying to go online fully after just starting as a one-to-one PT. Because I think there's a guy who I follow on Instagram called Tom Nosk, I think his name. Nosk. He's like an Australian guy. He does a lot of like personal brand development stuff, and I actually look up to him for a lot of his like content and ideas. He brought out a reel of the day. He was like, you could do anything you really want. He could have gone into any big business and done really well. He could have, done like wedding photography and done really well at that, or he could have gone into like, I think he did like digital photography or like digital art, something like that. He said if he put all of his effort into any of those one things sooner, he could have like been in the place he is now like 10 years ago. But he tried to keep finding that one thing that was going to boost him up like within a month or so. And I think that's what I tried to do. Is I tried to like, I gave it a month or two, and then I was like, right, not working, try something different. Whereas if I had just stuck at that one thing, which eventually I did, I just stuck with one-to-one PT. I was like, if I just stuck with this and put my all and all my effort into it, then it would excel. And then I'm in the position I am now, where it's like I've been fully booked for like the past like 7 months now. I've been able to like not fill a slot, which is nice. So I think for anyone who's like starting out, don't try and find alternatives to like what you already have planned to do, if that's what I mean, if you know what I mean. Because I think a lot of people will want to go to the online coaching route because of what they see on like Instagram.
Yeah.
So you see online coaches who are like travel and work from Bali and, you know, go to these like gyms in Marbella and stuff. And you can just like give your clients a 5-minute check-in and charge them £500 a month for it because you're tanned and on trend. You know what I mean? Because that's the realm we live in now. Is like online coaches these days. As long as you've got like extremely short shorts on, you look somewhat like Mike Thurston, then they're going to go with you over the next person, no matter how many qualifications you've got.
To be fair though, saying that, I do feel that the industry has shifted a lot, like over the past probably like 2 or 3 years, and there's absolutely like there's those people who I was almost going to say a name. Oops, was going to name someone. I'm not going to do that. There's those people
After the
who
podcast.
yeah, oh, absolutely, mate, absolutely. But there's those people, mate, exactly like you said. I remember we had this conversation where it's kind of like, unfortunately, yeah, like if you do look ridiculous, like if you are an IFBB pro, you can just put coach in your bio and people will just come to you. But those people tend to have high turnover, and I think there's more of a shift now that there's so many coaches everywhere. Maybe it won't happen now, but I think in the next few years, people are going to go online coaching is dying, and I think what it is it's the good fucking coaches rise to the top and the shit kind of sinks. But mate, I think as well, like you said, you kind of if you know that you enjoy, like you've loved sports therapy, like it is your passion and you're extremely fucking knowledgeable about it, so the fact that you've gone more into that and more into one-to-one, because again that's something that you're extremely passionate about. Like I remember even when we trained together, you were fucking like on it, mate. It was sick. And I think you have to chase your passion and you can't just kind of, I think maybe yeah, people do get into coaching because they're like, oh, that's just what everyone else does, and they don't actually think that, you know, it's what suits them.
I think it's tough as well because I think more so these days is you see less people putting in their bios, or like the less good coaches, just say. I don't want to say good coaches because you know what I mean, but most people are putting like I help yada 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 lose
Oh, God,
5 pounds in this day, and
Yeah.
they go along that route, and then as soon as people click on your bio, see that, they're immediately turned off by it because they're like, oh, he's just one of them.
Yeah.
And again, relating back to what the Tom Nuss guy says on Instagram, it's like if you can create a really good personal brand where people buy into the person, then they're going to be interested in what businesses and what you're associated with after that.
Yeah, man,
It's like if
100%.
people buy into you, then they buy into your business that you've got, or they buy into the companies you're with because they enjoy you and they want to support you. So I feel like I think what people need to realize now these days is that stop advertising yourself as a business, more as a person, and then it's everything will follow after that.
Mate, 100%. I mean,
What's your
we have go on.
sorry, Jack.
No,
I was going to say, what's your favorite like generic online coach bio?
Oh God. I don't know. Probably it's always the ones where it's like, I help men or women get fit and toned in 30 days or less, or
I
something
help
like
them
that.
yummy mummies drop tummy fat and
Yeah.
build toned arms in 12 weeks or less.
Or like I help busy 8 children mothers fix their unstable relationships and lose fat at the same time.
Oh, mate.
I mean,
Yeah,
that sounds like a decent niche, to be fair.
I can't ever imagine reading a bio and being like, yeah, signing up to someone because of the bio. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such an on the nose way of marketing. It feels so weird. If I saw a bio that was like, I help people called Jack bodybuild better, I'd be like, what
Yeah.
the fuck, bro? This is weird.
And some of them are so generalized that you're like, okay, doesn't every coach do that?
Yeah. I think
It's
My
people who are
favorite
like,
one has got to be when it's like, I I help people lose fat whilst eating like everything that they love.
oh
Like,
yeah,
that's cap.
that's
I
that's
get it. You
why
use
you're in the
macros.
problem that you're in.
yeah,
When
yeah.
people say that, it's like I get it. You like macros, but that's not like that's not. Yeah, you can have a cheesecake every single day, but you can have like 10 grams of a cheesecake every day. It's not like you can eat a full fucking cheesecake.
Yeah.
That's some weird marketing. That
There are some really like generalized ones where I really don't get. It's like, I help gym goers pack on muscle and burn fat.
Cool.
Okay. Doesn't everybody?
Is that not everyone's goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a misunderstanding of niche, and I think it literally comes back to what you said, mate. Like, people buy into personality. Like, you take any generic coaching bio, we could all make that our bio, and it wouldn't be false marketing because we can do all of those things. But why do people go to Bees? Why do people go to Luke? Why do people never go to me? I have no clients. My business is failing. Like, why do people go
I knew
to
that was coming.
like, well, Luke, you've not self-deprecated, so I had to. But the reason that people go to us is like just purely personality. Like, the amount of times, like, me and Luke have had inquiries from the same person, and they'll go with Luke or they'll go with me purely just because they're like, I vibe with one of you more. It's not because, oh, Luke had a better bio or Jack has a cooler profile picture or anything like that.
My profile picture is sexier, just for reference.
Well, you got the fucking it's like you topless with a green background in it.
Yeah.
Absolute man. Mate, my eyes
I think
are
it's
streaming because I hate.
I think it's difficult for like both of you really, because you're such similar coaches in a way. Like I first off thought like he was like your brother, and I was like, who are these two? Like just like Dumb and Dumber sitting together, and because it's like both of your niches are pretty much the same clientele, almost like to a T, I'd say.
I mean, other than the academy, yeah.
Yeah, I would say both your clientele is very similar to each other. So I guess when it comes down to like not competitiveness, but like it is in a way, but like friendly competitiveness is good. It's like, okay, who's the more personal one here? And I think that's a good thing to be as a coach. Is like just to be like, people don't realize that is about 80% of how you get clients. It's just being a good person and being like a nice person. Like people, the knowledge is almost like a bonus, and that's what keeps people in the long run is your knowledge. But then like to get them through the door in the first place and to like actually let them want to come back for that next session is just to be a nice person.
Yeah, I mean, people are literally going to be like hearing from you weekly. They might be getting calls monthly. They're going to be, vulnerable on WhatsApp. They're like how often do clients message you? For me, it's probably on average like every 2 to 3 days. Like someone's sending me a WhatsApp. Like the most that most people go without talking to me is probably like 4 days. Like if you're gonna talk to someone that frequently, you better like them,
Yeah.
And like if they're basically picking who's gonna look at their week and say, look, you might have fucked it, here's how you can unfuck it. And you're not gonna listen to someone that you don't care or respect. You need someone who you like and you respect and listen to. So mate, 100%, that's such a
And people are gonna, the more comfortable they get with you, the more questions that they're gonna ask. But then this is where it comes like the knowledge causing longevity part. Whereas okay, cool, they're more comfortable with you now. They're talking to you now. They're asking more questions. If you don't have answers to those questions, then that's when questions start to pop up in their head, saying like, "Oh wait, is this the person for me?" That like, although they're nice, they're not actually knowing what they're doing. So, is it worth the trade-off of a nice person? If you can find that nice balance between first off being nice and then also backing up and showing like, oh my god, he actually knows his stuff and he's like empathetic as well, then that's what keeps people.
Yeah, I think as well, if you need to get on with your clients and know what to say to them. Like we could get the same, like I'm sure the three of us as coaches could get the exact same 2 check-in sheet fill outs, but because 2 different people have sent it, the approach that you take for that person is going to be individualized. Like for some of my clients, it literally is the drill sergeant routine. Like they fucking love that. They'll just come down on them hard and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Sort yourself out. But other people, my fucking god, no, that is the wrong approach. Like it's much more gentle and caring and understanding, and like, let's look at the positives in this. Let's look at the kind of what we can get out of this and move on with. So yeah, 100%. It's almost like you need the rapport first, and then the knowledge second, and then the understanding third. That's like the kind of order that things go. The initial stages is just basically relying on rapport to get them going. Then you start getting more advanced. You need to back it with knowledge, and then after that, it's kind of they've got the majority of the knowledge and the rapport. It's just giving them the understanding to help them through that process and know how to communicate with them.
I think doing that online is like one of the hardest skills to learn. Hence why I didn't like going down that route. I was like, this is really hard to do, because I'm really big on reading people's like body language and like their face and everything. I have to as well. That's how I've been like trained in sports therapy as well. You need to learn how to build a rapport, and the first thing you ever look at is like as soon as they come through that door to come see you, even from the first initial handshake saying how are you doing today, you're looking at them and think, right, where are you compensating on one side, where are you in pain, are you pulling a face as you take that little step down to go into the door. It's things like that. So for me to then kind of like unlearn that and then shift it almost online was almost like never a case, which is why I find it so hard sometimes when I see physios or like sports therapists who are like purely online, like they are just like constant online physios, and I'm there like, that's really hard to do, especially when people have injuries, unless you like sit down. Like in COVID, it was awful when people had to do video consultations. It was so hard to pull up a diagnosis. Like even it's hard enough to pull a diagnosis when you're in person, let alone like do it over a screen and not be able to like palpate or do tests on them, etc. So I feel like it just wasn't a thing that I could actually ever do in my niche, was go fully online with it. I can help people with strength and rehabilitation plans if they have a vague diagnosis. However, if they come to me and they're like, listen, 4 days ago, I was playing a game of football and I changed direction funny and I felt my knee go. People say that all the time, like my knee go. And then I was there like, cool.
You're like, where is
now
it?
What?
Where in the knee is it? And they're like, the knee, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what? I'm like, oh, is it like a dull ache, sharp shooting pain? Is it crunching? Is it grinding? Oh, I don't really know.
Just hurts, mate. Like,
just hurts.
Just hurts.
Yeah.
Just give me the answer.
Just give me the answer. You know, just tell me in my 206 bones of my body which one's hurting, please.
I think that's a good point though about like with injury science, and that's why like in-person PT is fantastic, because you're able to like work through so many solutions. Like I always make a habit out of going and seeing clients in person, because you can literally like, if you've got, I had a client like a month ago who was like, oh, my elbows hurt when I'm doing any kind of tricep work, and I was like, okay, we're seeing each other, so we'll go through it. We ran through like yeah, mate, you were the client. We ran through like 8 variations in the span of like 15 minutes, and we found 6 of them that work for him. And like I was able to figure out what positions tend to hurt his tricep, or tend to hurt his elbow more, and then how we can avoid those. And I was like, okay, if you've got plenty of variety here now, but like going through that online is really, really difficult. And I think that's where online probably does attract more like people with a better kind of understanding. This is why, James, mate, you're such a good client online, because if something is wrong and you report it back to me, I know that something is wrong, and you have a very good understanding of like, okay, here's probably the general direction that we're going for, and you have a good idea of reading between the lines a little bit more. It's just giving you that direction to take that stress off yourself. Whereas when you're dealing with someone who's coming to you and maybe they're like older and beaten up and bruised and they don't quite know how to train, that's where online really does have its limitations. I mean, it's still possible to work around, absolutely, don't get me wrong, but I can't sit here and say that I'd still not rather like go and do that session with that person, because you can just fire through so many things so quickly and just be like, how about this? Does that hurt? That does hurt. Okay, well then just quickly do this. Whereas, you know, obviously with coaching that might take weeks, depending on how good at feedback they are. They might be like, oh, it hurts to squat. Okay, get me some footage. Let me know how that goes next week. Reduce the load by 50%. Don't go above a 5 out of 10. And then they don't film it. And you're like, okay, well now it's 2 weeks until we can sort this, you know?
Yeah, and I guess it's a good case. That's basically as far as you can go when it comes to online coaching, is you can just change their form slightly. It might not be the optimal way of doing the movement, but if that is what prevents the pain and still get some stimulus, then that is the best you can do. And that's a limitation. That's why I can't go that point, because now I'm thinking like, right, now we've avoided it, the problem's here, we've gone around it, but now we haven't actually sorted out the problem in the first place. So my job is I've got to go through that problem. So I'm like, right, cool, let's go around it. Preferably, obviously, I preach about this on my Instagram a lot. It's just load management. Load management is one of the biggest things when it comes to any sort of soft tissue injury. Tendons, muscles, just manage the load that you're putting through it. Try not to go around the problem. Don't start taping yourself, sticking needles in yourself like you're a voodoo doll. You know, getting red light therapy and making you look like you're on a human sunbed. Just people, no, these, oh my God, I'll go really into it in a minute. These types of like modalities of therapy treatment where people are, you see these swimmers or these athletes come out with like big circular love bites on them because they've done cupping.
Yeah.
Because that's all those are, by the way, just for people watching or listening. Don't ever do cupping ever. I'll find where you live. It is the worst form of treatment ever, and it's a load of Instagram bollocks. If you're gonna go about changing a way you go about your training to avoid injury, it is load management. Look at your external factors first and foremost. Are you sleeping 8 hours a night on average? Are you eating like an adult? Are you exercising regularly? Are you minimizing stress as much as you can? Because in the last year or so, more than ever, especially with like tendon issues, because that tendon issues I'll stick to, because that seems to be like the ongoing pattern in especially your guys' type of like training and like clientele. And even mine as well, as someone who does a lot of like running, conditioning, high rocks and gym. Tendons are the one thing that are going to be the most annoying injury, and also the most common one as well. Now it is just managing the load we put through it, and also knowing when to rest it. Like rest is not a bad thing. That's what people get so wrong. It's like, don't avoid the issue, but don't beat it up. Or just keep, you know what I mean? Because I think Jack here is guilty of it. I think as much as he...
Mate, yeah, I had a terrible physio, which is annoying, who literally, they did cupping on my leg. They did it. They've done everything on my leg and my quads. And we ended up resting it for 18 months. That was while I was at uni. And I came home, changed physio, and he was like, you need a rehab plan. Like, you need to build back some kind of capacity within that tendon because it has done nothing. And that was the issue that I was getting. As I was like, I would be like, yeah, it's fine, but then sometimes I walk downhill and my knee hurts, so therefore I'm not recovered, so therefore I'm not rested, so I can't go back. And he was like, no, you've just built zero load tolerance into that tendon at all. And we worked through a little bit of training, like you said, load management, a lot of box squatting, making sure that I didn't go into really deep knee flexion or hip flexion. And then guess what? Over time, I was able to expand that range of motion. I was able to slowly watch the pain dissipate. And then besides the past week, because it's a little bit inflamed, it's been really fucking good.
And that's what rehab's going to be. Rehab is so up and down. There is no linear to rehab. It is going to be good days, bad days. With anything, progress, weight loss, weight gain, it's the same. That's the same with rehab. We need to imagine our tendons are like a bit of a rope in a way. So obviously with rope, the more you pull it, the more you use it, little bits of yarn will start coming off it. And then that's what you call like tendinopathy. People call it tendinitis, tendinosis. Those are the old terms we used to use. And now we just give it a big umbrella term called tendinopathy. When that rope is overused and the yarn starts coming off and it starts to become a bit inflamed, then that's when we need to start managing the load. Be like, right, it's getting a bit painful now. Let's not push it too much. Let's maintain where we're at. Maybe drop back a little bit until that yarn can put itself back into place. People don't do that. And you get a lot with like runners, especially. We have a lot of runners that come in who've got like IT band syndrome, or maybe they've got a bit of quad pain, a bit of patellofemoral pain, or they've got a bit of hamstring tendinopathy, very popular, or even Achilles tendon. Is people are like, yeah, I get a bit of pain recently. And I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe let's give you a bit of a rehab plan. Oh, by the way, I've got a 10K this weekend. I'm like, right. So I tell them, I'm like, right. Yeah, I kind of explain to them what's going on. And then I'm saying, like, right, you can go and do the race. You'll be in pain and you probably will, and it will worsen afterwards. So this will be the plan afterwards. More often than not, they're like, oh, just see how it goes. And then that's normally ends up.
Come back in the worst spot.
Come back in the worst spot, and then they come back, yeah, you're right. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then You kind of get a rehab plan. So all you got to do, manage the load, look at the psychological factors as well. And also, I think a big one that people ignore a lot of the time in anything to do with the lower body, knees, ankles, tendons, hips, is how you walk, just in general life. Like the way you walk is like a massive thing in regards to your overall like foot, knee, and hip health. Because if you got like a wall and you just punched it like that, not very like for a few seconds here, that's not going to be very uncomfortable. But if you walk 10,000 steps a day, that's 70,000 steps a week. You do that 70,000 times, you punch a wall, you'll eventually start going to get some pain, especially over a month or so. So I think although in like the short term, it doesn't seem very like significant, in the long term, it can start to build up big time.
My walk is absolutely fucked, which is hence why I have so many knee issues, which has come from hip issues. Bringing things back a little bit to kind of talking about the difference between in-person and online, and obviously for what you're doing, I think 100% you have to be in person, like you said, and it makes a lot more sense. And obviously, I imagine in PT, there's still a lot of overlap there. With your online client base, would you say, is it a similar kind of demographic, or do they tend to be a bit more kind of further along and advanced? Or is it, how much overlap is there in your demographic there?
So majority of my online clients are people who have had significant surgery and they're returning to training. Without naming too much, it's people who have had like abdominal surgeries, have had hip surgeries. So they already have those issues when it comes to certain ranges of motion.
Yeah.
And obviously they're going to start to trust me over like the more generalized PT anyway. So like I'm the first kind of call to action, which is nice. So I'd say the majority of them are people who have had something significant happen to them already, but they now need a pathway to come back to where they were and stronger than that before in a safe manner. Like in a safe manner is the big word here. Is like people don't want to just be given, especially people who've had hip surgery. The last thing people want to do straight away is go back into back squatting because that's what they immediately want to go back and do. They're like, right, I'm going to go
put some back squat, right? I thought I thought you can't grow legs if you don't back squat.
To grow.
To grow, and but when you've got when your hip bone is looking like a Rubik's cube, the last thing you want to do is shuffle a barbell onto their back and tell them to squat and then give me a pain rating. No, it's like, how can we now build your way back up this? Can you first of all do a seated leg press? Does that cause you pain? No. Okay, fine, that's good. So load through the feet isn't a bad thing. So what's it now like putting some load in other ways? Can we do a goblet squat? Can you do a goblet squat? Yes. Okay, cool. 1, stability's there. 2, your lower back doesn't mind it either. Cool. Then can we move up to things like a back squat or maybe a lunge? How can you do with a lunge? I just finding it's just going about like a really easy approach to basically getting back to like a new movement. I guess that's a bit of the difference between like me and like a normal bodybuilding coach, something like that. Is they normally give them a plan and they're like, right, cool, let me know how you get on with it, like mentally. I think it's me, it's like, right, what's your pain saying? How comfortable do you feel? Because a lot of the time, kinesiophobia for what other people don't know is just like the fear of movement. A lot of people come to me with that, and that's where that's our starting point, is getting them comfortable with movement.
I find it so funny how like the way that people talk about the lower back and stuff like that. Like if you get any lower back pain, you're immediately ruined. You're gonna die. Like it's broken. Your spine is going to collapse inwards, and you're going to have to be euthanized because you're that fucked. But then if you make the front of someone's torso hurt, they're like, "You're a genius. Oh my god, my abs feel so good."
Yeah,
and it's like it's exactly the same thing. It's just everyone talks about the lower back like you're going to die.
Yeah, I think lower back. Not. I think lower back ache is so demonized in so many ways. But I think it's getting better. I think everyone's becoming more accepting to like lower back, or like just overall spinal training. Like Jefferson curls, Zerchers have definitely come out a lot more recently, which is nice to see. I'm a big fan of any Zercher movement. For those who can tolerate basic like back squats and stuff first, if you want an extra challenge, a Zercher is really good. Of course, for building muscle, not the best option, but for overall like. If a functional move, God, I want to grow my legs. Might better get my biceps to give up before my actual legs do. But yeah, I think it's really nice to see Zurchers come through, especially for people who are sports people. You know, especially like these rugby players who have got to go. They got to basically build up armor. That's basically what contact athletes are like. They've got to build up your body armor, bulletproof lower backs, and then back to what you were saying about like lower back injuries and stuff. I'm probably gonna get this number wrong, but I think there was a study, and only they looked at like a bunch of incidences where there was disc herniations. I think only 6% were actually due to lifting heavy stuff. That's like nothing. And I think a big chunk of like 80% or something was due to your genetics. So unfortunately, if you've got a history of people having disc herniations in the family, just be careful. That's all I'm going to say. Or be a bit
I
more
saw
careful.
another thing somewhat like that as well, where just like when you look at loads of people's X-rays, they've got shit in their spine that's like looks like they should be in pain, and they're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I
And
remember we covered that on the PT project. It's like this idea that anatomy isn't perfect, and like you could look at like me and Luke. You could look at our shoulders, and they might be absolutely fucked internally, but we're not experiencing any pain there.
Mm.
another fascinating thing is like if say someone's got an issue, it doesn't have to be in their lower back, it could be anywhere, but you take them into a hospital, half of them actually go and get the surgery, and half of them go onto the surgery bed, they meet the doctor, they go under anesthetic, they get the incision, but they don't actually do anything, and they have the same reduction in pain. It's hilarious.
Yeah, unfortunately, genetics and disc herniations are the only thing that really have a massive correlation with each other. And people always say, don't lift with a flex spine, lift with your knees. I think that's the one thing everyone gets told as gets called a kid. And I'm like, what do you mean? What? Like, we're just going to have glass backs if we keep doing that all the time. You know what I mean? And people who actually avoid then lifting with a flex spine or with any spinal flexion at all they're the ones at greater risk of an injury, because if they go to pick up, I don't know, their toddler or whatever in front of them, maybe a little bit too far ahead, and then they go pop, that's it, you've ruptured a disc.
Yeah, that if you don't, I think people forget that you build strength through ranges of motion, and so if every single time you're doing some kind of pull or hinging movement, you're doing it with as neutral of a spine as possible, there's still risk to having to pulling with a flex spine because you haven't actually built that strength. A classic example, right, is like a back squat. If you're doing quarter reps on a back squat and then you suddenly, for whatever reason, go arse to grass, or you're forced into a position where you're arse to grass, not only do you have very little strength there, but you have very little load tolerance there. And that's where you're going to see those issues. Whereas if you take someone like a Dr. Mike, who's training as full a ROM as possible, whether we agree or disagree with that, he's going to have very, very good joint integrity for the most part, because if I suddenly surprise Dr. Mike and shove him into the bottom of a squat, he's going to be like, okay, this is fine. I do this with 300 pounds on my back. I can just get out of this. Whereas if you take someone who is saving their knees and quarter reps, they're probably, you could cause some damage. Well, there's definitely going to be a lack of strength there. But yeah, like you said, when people take themselves into new positions that they haven't been before with load, that's where those issues come from.
I think there's so many different techniques in lifting that have been demonized as well. Yeah. That we only because recent research come out to suggest that like it's all fine. Like knee valgus is a big one, when your knees cave in that way.
In the day, yeah.
People would always say, "Oh my god, you're gonna pop a kneecap out." Like, no, you're not. It's fine.
ACL damage.
Yeah, ACL damage or adductor strains or IT band's gonna pop. All these stuff that came out.
IT band's gonna pop. Just rip out your leg.
I mean, I think the IT band can take up like 300 tons of force, by the way. It's like, it's mental.
Yeah. Luke, were you going to say that? Was that the Tom Purvis fact?
No. I was going to say it's like the body has developed stupid amounts of cartilage there because it's used to being exposed to those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
The butt wink was a big one. Has always been.
Yeah.
People always said, "Oh, don't butt wink. It's gonna create a spinal shearing force on or something." stuff like that. It's like, no, it's not. It's actually, if you try not to butt wink, you're actually probably producing more of a shearing force in your spine. The things that people don't realize as well is like some movements that are like old school are like actually there's no increased risk of injury. Ever see like the guys with like jeans and their work boots on with a high vis on doing behind the neck pull downs?
Yeah.
Nothing bad about that. Not bad for your shoulder health whatsoever. It's actually just fine. Or behind the neck barbell press, you know. The only reason you shouldn't do it is because range of motion. That's pretty much it.
Might be outside your active ROM. If it is, and you're forcing yourself into that position over time with heavy loads, you can see issues there. I think the kind of the thing that I always try and make people aware of is, say if you did have someone deadlifting and they were always doing it with a neutral spine, and then they got up to whatever weight, quite heavy, and then they start to flex at the spine. It's like, okay, well, if we'd been flexed at the spine the entire time, then there is that low tolerance there. But if you're suddenly adjusting your form, or your form is being, you're having joints pulled into a position that they weren't previously with new heavy loads, that's where issues develop. The same way that if I were to go and squat quarter squats for a bunch of reps for a bunch of weeks and then progress that load and then start doing full reps, my knees would get very fucking angry at me. When you start to progress range of motion across any joint with new high loads, that's where there's a lot of risk. So there's nothing wrong with, like you said, like having, putting yourself in pretty much any joint position. You just need to make sure that you're literally, like, we're coming full circle, load management. You can't just load up a bar, go into a new range of motion, and then expect to be fine.
Yeah, and I think because you were talking a lot about like pain there, and I think especially in regards like pain during rehab, is people always ask the question of like, is pain during rehab a good thing or a bad thing? And it's like the answer is kind of both, which is really annoying. I know, but when people say that pain is obviously a good thing, is when if you are having pain during rehab and then let's say 24 hours that your pain is then decreased overall, good, it's a good thing. But then some people have pain during rehab and then if it's worse after 24 hours, then you're like, shit, that's obviously not the approach we need to take. And you just go back and redo it again. So I guess the good thing is pain during rehab can be a good thing overall, because let's say you do have pain and then it gets better. Good, you're a step ahead. And then if you have pain, then you're not losing out on anything. You're just going straight back to where you can just go back straight back to where you were, because you just decrease the load again and then change the exercise, and then you're right back down to where you went. You're not going to take a back step basically, unless someone's got an ACL tear and within their first 2 weeks you load 200 kg on the bar and make them squat it. Then that's probably not a good idea.
I remember when I was in one of my.
How will they ever grow big if you don't put 200 kilos on them?
Yeah, you're never going to grow if you don't squat 5 plates, bro. It doesn't matter the range of motion.
I don't care if your ACL looks like Swiss cheese, just squat.
We have got a couple of questions, and I'm aware that we're kind of nearing the end of the time here, so we've got a few little kind of fun quick fire ones. I want to take it away with Oh, there's a good few here. If you could coach any historical figure, who would it be? They don't have to be someone involved in sports or have injury history. Maybe someone with a famous injury. Who knows?
Okay. Anyone I can coach. Anyone. Okay. Wow, that's a really good question.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Can you both give your answers?
Like I've got a good one for you.
Okay, I've got a couple in my head. I think mine are all footballers though, because of like because of they're such like great athletes. They were just managed and like treated really badly. Like, a few come to mind for those who know football. It would be like Reece James, right back for England, extremely good player. Probably could have been the best wing back for England since Ashley Cole. However, just been absolutely detrimented by injury the whole time. In terms of like funny answers,
yeah,
Susan Boyle, that'd be kind of cool.
Oh mate, that's jokes.
Susan Boyle would be a good one. I think she'd be an absolute piece of fire if she came to a photo shoot ever.
You should get her on a High Rocks. Get her partnered up with like Simon Cowell.
Yeah,
High Rocks partnership.
Yeah, I'd like. To be fair, I wouldn't mind trying to get like some big fella on a High Rocks, like Eddie Hall. Imagine that.
Ooh, I feel like he'd be all right because strongman has a lot of those.
That would be disgusting.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of cardiovascular work that you do have to do.
That's what I mean. Can you imagine Eddie Hall with his at his maximum cardiovascular output, and like running wasn't an issue, any of that. He just was as strong as he is now. Like, mate, he'd get to like the 10-foot wall ball and he'd throw it 100 foot in the air.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think maybe strongman is the closest to high rocks out of powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman out of those three.
Oh,
I think
100%.
Eddie is the
Yeah, 100%.
Anyone else that you would coach? Famous people?
Oh. I actually have no idea.
For
I
you,
can't
I
think
was
of
thinking JFK would be a good one. Because if he could
JFK?
sort his back out, he wouldn't have got killed. Because he was in that back brace, and that's why he couldn't lay down and stop himself from
Wait,
getting
is that
shot.
really it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cause of
He couldn't
cause of
duck down
death,
properly
poor
because he had to
posture.
have a back brace on.
It's because he deadlifted with a slightly flexed spine. So sad.
He didn't do a Zercher squat. Oh well.
Exactly. Here's quite an interesting one. This might be a bit off guard. We might need to circle back to it. But do you have any questions for me or Luke? I know that obviously I coach you, and we haven't really touched on that much because you're more interesting than I am. But yeah, do you have any questions for the both of us?
Okay. Yeah, I do actually. And also people who watch this can give an answer as well, because I think it would be good.
Ooh.
Obviously, a lot of the outgoings of people's money monthly is the things to do with doing everything but hitting the source of their problem. So in terms of getting in shape, so gym clothing, etc., things like that. So why do you feel like people avoid hitting the nail on the head when it comes to like just getting a coach, and they end up buying these supplements, these gym brands, all this gym clothing and everything? Why do you think they do that instead?
It's got to be because it requires like way less work. It might be more of a hit financially, but I had this thought the other day because I was sat on the bus and somebody comes along in like a Gucci t-shirt or something like that. I'm like, you could spend like 150, 200 pounds to look good in a Gucci t-shirt, or you could just go to the gym and spend £5 on the H&M one and be jacked.
Yeah, this
Like-
is from this shirt is like £5. This beanie's like a tenner. Like,
This shirt was free.
And in regards to like clothing and stuff, what do you think is the actual problem with like gym brands and gym clothing these days?
I think. Oh, Luke's off. I think the biggest issue with a lot of gym brands, a lot of gym clothing, it depends on the brand, it depends on the clothing. I think if I were to go for like the big ones, like Gymshark stand out to me. They're probably like the main one that I like have an issue with, and I think that's because their message is very, very strange. Because their message more nowadays is kind of like very inclusive. Look how you look, a bit more fashionable. Kind of like it doesn't matter if you're in shape or you're just starting the gym or whatever. Wear some Gymshark, you'll look good, you'll feel good. But then they have the history of their company, and they're still hiring people who look like bodybuilders, who might not be bodybuilders, but are taking things that bodybuilders would take and living like bodybuilders, and they're still kind of peddling certain looks and ideas to people, which I don't have an issue with. It's just the fact that their messaging goes against that. I think a lot of clothing brands now just seem to be quite disconnected from people. They don't really know what it's like to be training in 2024. They all feel like brands that were set up 10 years ago that have just kind of continued on, and I think they're all quite disconnected. And a lot of them are either have very conflicting messages, or the message that they have is just very generic, where it's just like, yeah, we take this seriously, and it's like, okay, but what does that mean?
Yeah, because I think Gymshark have now changed into like We Do Gym or something like that. I don't like. First of all, I think that's very generalized. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what they're trying to go for anymore. And yeah, like you said, they went for like the all-inclusive route. People got annoyed at it, and they were like, "Oh no, we'll go back to the old-style bodybuilding stuff." And then they brought out like a load of old-style stuff, and that was it. And then now they feel like there's no real direction. I definitely think they've now turned into like the luxury brand. They turned as like the represent of the gym world. Ever since they've like opened up a few more stores in London, they've obviously gotten the Selfridges and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like they get people on board, these influencers on board, because people like the idea of being sponsored by Gymshark, not the actual sponsorship itself. They enjoy the idea of having a Gymshark code, whereas they're not really sure why they have it or why they wanted them to have it in the first place.
I think it's kind of like people tend to buy like gym clothes either to kind of like cover up their physique, and instead they'd rather wear something that says like bodybuilder or something than actually kind of look that part. They'd rather go for that. I think people it's kind of almost turned into this, like, again, it's so disconnected. It's kind of like you said, with Gymshark becoming this like fashion statement. And this isn't just Gymshark, by the way. Like, this is pretty much, there's a lot of brands that do this. They're just the easiest target. Sorry, Ben, if you're listening. You're not. But like, it's they're kind of going down the route of like being a bit like, it's not the look, it's the fact that it's Gymshark and it's expensive.
Yeah, it's the idea. It's the idea of brands more than anything these days, which is a shame. But I guess that's just how it is. I mean, it's that's how it is with most brands. Like, I've been approached by brands like supplement companies and like things like that, and said like, "Listen, we'd like to have you on board. This is our mission," and I'm like, "Cool. Why me?"
Yeah.
And they're like, and then it's always a general response. "Oh, we like your content creation. I feel like you're a good fit for the brand." I'm like, "Why am I a good fit for the brand?" They never develop on it.
Yeah.
Because all they're trying to do is just get people's names out there.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like people can't relate to brands anymore, which is a shame. But it's, I guess, business is business at the end of the day for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think they've all just kind of like, literally, again, we're coming full circle. They're not personal enough anymore. They're all too full blown. And I know that I don't think that's something that just happens. I think if Gymshark wanted to, they could hire some people, survey, talk to people. They could involve themselves more and be more grounded and know what people want and what people want from their brand. But I don't think they're trying. It definitely doesn't give off that impression.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing, Gymshark lifting club. It's like, oh yeah, you get to be part of a club. They like the idea of being part of a club. So like, oh, I like this, but they're not like
it's
included in it
as well, isn't it? It's like lifting, like they're almost scared to be like high rocks, bodybuilding, CrossFit. They're like running. They're athlete. They're kind of like, they're scared to kind of go for anything.
They're scared to step. They're walking on eggshells basically. They're scared to like step on anyone else's toes and just be like, listen, this band might not be for you. So we're just gonna make it for everyone until we see who likes it. It's just like, no, sometimes it's quite nice to have a niche. Sometimes it's like, okay, that brand's not for me, or like, and then people are like, wow, this brand is mine. I love this. This is the bit of me.
I'd rather.
That's kind of one of the things that, say, Gasp does so well, is that it doesn't. I don't believe it explicitly says anywhere we are bodybuilding, but everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like you see someone in a Gasp t-shirt, and you're like, oh yeah, like he's a bodybuilder.
He's into his bodybuilding. Yeah.
And he likes pajamas. Pajama box.
He does like pajamas. Yeah.
I think, to be fair, a lot of the like, there's a decent few, like the bodybuilding brands tend to do it pretty well.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't really seem to exist too much outside of that. Like, obviously, like I'm wearing my like Monster Factory. You can kind of get an idea of what it is off the name, and it's very like old school and hardcore, and they're very good at like doing that niche and kind of sticking with it. And I feel like for the most part they've done quite well. It's I think there's just not really any good like, but again, you kind of can't really you can't wear this out. Like, I can't really wear Monster Factory out. And I think,
except you did on your entire holiday.
I wore a Gasp shirt for one day. Fun fact, that Gasp shirt arrived right before I left, and I was like, well, I'm going to wear it, obviously. Fair. So, yeah, I've got another one arriving. But yeah, I think that's a good question, mate. Yeah.
Gotta let everyone know that you build muscles in the gym with a pink Gasp t-shirt.
Mate, I never thought I'd wear Gasp, and I bought one shirt in the sale, and then I was like, oh shit, I get it now. I get it.
This is my whole personality now. Wow.
It is really good quality stuff, to be fair. Like, I've had some, I think 2 or 3 years, and it's still like
The
looks
thing
like I
is,
got it last
some of
week.
it is like it's the same shirt but different designs, but one's like 20 quid more expensive. And then I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a piss take. But the like, so I'll just go for like, I'll be like, I want a big t-shirt, I'll get a big t-shirt. What's a decent priced one? Because some of it is like ridiculously overpriced. Like, I was talking to Neo and he was telling me there's like a really heavy hoodie they have, like it's 170 quid. I'm like, I don't care how much money you have, that's a waste of money. Like, I don't care if you're Bill Gates, that's a fucking waste of money.
I think it's the same with Represent. Look at Team 247.
Oh my god,
Like
yeah. I remember we were talking about them ages ago.
Team 247 are the best marketing. I mean, one of the people I work at the gym with, her fella is friends with the guys who made Represent. So they're both brothers. I think they're on a podcast as well with like Ollie Marchand or something, and they were saying like one's a designer, one's the finance guy, and they've just like created the best combination of like just good marketing and selling it at a high price, because people are obsessed with it and it's nothing special. But
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
really get it personally. But then again, like, I think people would probably say the same thing about the fucking beanie on my head. So
I know, but like you didn't pay 45 quid for that, like their
that's
hats
fair.
here.
But also, I'm stingy as fuck. I like, I never, I still live on Vinted. Even after uni, I still live on Vinted. I don't care.
Oh really? Yeah.
I just
I
claim it's
mean,
for the environment, but I'm just as tight bastard.
I'm on a small scroll here, and I've seen a hoodie for £210, so straight off it.
Was that represent or gasp? Because it could
Yeah,
be either.
Team 247.
Yeah, fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right, we're running out of time. So if we were to wrap up with one final question, we'll
Mhm.
go for the three most influential people in your journey. And that could be outside of coaching, just kind of in your life.
Okay. I'll go first and foremost. My mother.
Of course, bro.
It's got to be Mumsy. Right now, in terms of like, I'll split it up. So like personal inspiration, my mum. Business inspiration at the moment is Tom Nosk. And then I'd say gym motivation or like sporting motivation right now would probably be, oh
Is it going to be
god,
high Roxy? Because obviously we have
I
got competition on the set and the sides.
I know it is. Oh god, athlete. I don't have any. There's like okay. I'll go like athlete slash content creation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's a guy called Lucas Mueller. I don't know if anyone heard of him, but he does like a very aesthetic reels. Dutch does a lot of like ultra and things like that. So yeah, I'd say personal, my mum, business side, Tom Nosk, and then content creation slash exercise wise, it would be Lucas Mueller.
Mate, fantastic. We definitely need to get you on for a part two. I'm aware that we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people
Thank you for
find
having
you?
me.
Promote yourself a little bit, and then we will wrap things up.
Instagram, TikTok, and everything else. I think BeazLifts, and then my coaching is linked in that profile as Beaz Coaching.
And how can people inquire with you? Just send a DM or link in bio.
Link in bio. It'll take to the website, and the website will be a 5-stage little questionnaire, and then I'll get an email notification, and then I will give you a text on WhatsApp within a few hours, probably, of you submitting your form, and then we get having a little chat, and then we go from there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. Like I said, we definitely need to do a follow up potentially after you've competed in High Rocks. That'll be fun to talk
Yeah.
about. Thank you for coming on. Much love, mate. Take it easy, and thank you, listeners at home.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, bro. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. See ya.